Welcome back, everybody, to Weekly Briefing. Well, Joe Biden revealed that he would halt some shipments of American weapons to Israel if Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu orders a major invasion of the city of Rafah. Listen.
I made it clear that if they go into Rafah, they haven't gone into Rafah yet. If they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah, to deal with the cities, to deal with that problem. We're going to continue to make sure Israel is secure in terms of Iron Dome and their ability to respond to attacks like came out of the Middle East recently. But it's just wrong. We're not going to supply the weapons and the artillery shells used that have been used.
Artillery shells as well.
Yeah.
I'm joined by our panel of fabulous experts. And John, how unprecedented or not is a situation where a White House is putting a hold on bombs and artillery shells for an ally that is at war?
I'm not sure if it's unprecedented, John, but it's the wrong thing to do, no question about it. If you take a step back and you look what precipitated this entire war in Gaza and this attack in Gaza, it's a counterattack because the Israelis suffered their biggest ever terrorist attack. It was a barbaric attack in which they lost many more people per capita than the U.S. lost on 9/11. And so they're responding to this, and the only way that this can end is if they actually take away the threat, which is to destroy Hamas. They need to go into Rafah to do that. And so this is to withhold offensive weapons for them to be able to actually finish the job is ridiculous, number one. Number two, you look at how weak Biden is in that montage that you put together. I mean, he can't even string a sentence together, and we're actually looking to him for leadership. Third thing that I would say, John, is that you have Congress has already appropriated money after a long wait. They've authorized money and appropriated money to go to Israel's defense. Once again, now we're withholding weapons. I mean, after Congress has already pushed that through on a bipartisan basis, it makes no sense.
It's interesting. Donald Trump had some comments regarding the current president's actions with regard to Israel. Why don't we take a listen to that?
With respect to Israel is disgraceful. If any Jewish person voted for Joe Biden, they should be ashamed of themselves. He's totally abandoned Israel, and nobody can believe it. I guess he feels good about it because he did it as a political decision. You have to do the right decision, not the political decision, but he did a very bad thing.
Lisa, what do you make of the former president's comments there?
Well, he's referring to the political decision to make pivots on our position regarding Israel to appease certain voters in swing states like Michigan, Minnesota. And the bottom line is it's not going to appease them. Because if you listen to what they want Israel off the map. They even want Jews dead around the world in certain cases. So these small little concessions that he thinks in their eyes, these are small concessions. In the eyes of the Israelis, they're looking to the United States. The relationship should be ironclad, and we should not be micromanaging a war where they're fighting the war for us. They're fighting the war for the free world. Hamas wants an end to Israel. They want Jews dead. They're also at war with the United States. So when we look to Israel, our partner, our ally in the Middle East, that relationship should be steady, predictable, stable, regardless of if there's a Democrat or Republican in office.
It's interesting, Horace. Lisa's point is interesting about having unequivocal support for an ally, and yet the Biden administration has made it pretty clear, Washington Post quoting a senior Biden administration official, quote, Israel should not launch a major ground operation in Rafah, where more than 1 million people are sheltering with nowhere else to go. Is this a situation, do you suppose, where domestic politics are starting to influence foreign policy?
Well, it is a case of that, and it's very dangerous when that phenomenon occurs. What we're looking at is the need to say, if you're the nation of Israel, that we're not going to have the most vicious, dastardly attack in the country's history in terms of a per capita impact of death. When America was attacked, we responded. We were not limited. We wanted people to understand this is an aggression that against us that we're just not going to allow. Why should Israel be forced to say, well, we can have half? We'll sort of push back, but we won't do everything that we can. If you want to see more attacks on Israel, make Israel speak in those terms. If you want to see fewer attacks on Israel, allow Israel to say that there will be consequences, and until we're convinced that it's safe to stop, we're not stopping.
Fascinating developments out of the White House. I'm sure we'll be seeing more. Meanwhile, MTG's MTV is dead, at least for now. The House rejected a motion calling for Speaker Mike Johnson's removal after Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene triggered the vote. Republican Majority Leader Steve Scalise countered by calling for a vote to table it. By the end, Johnson kept his job by a vote of 359 to 43. Here's MTG introducing her MTV.
The House Representatives to be vacant. This is the uniparty for the American people watching.
Gentlelady will suspend.
Lisa, does the uniparty survive, as MTG said?
You know, it's so embarrassing to watch what she's doing. It's incredibly selfish, it's un-American. Obviously, the Republican Party doesn't need any more infighting, and I guess on the part of the Democrats who voted against this, they hate her more than they hate Johnson. So it's good job security for him, I think, in the long run.
Horace, a lot of interesting optics on this because the former president, in an unusual move, I don't know of any former presidents or presidential candidates who actually sent out a truth social posting in which he advocated for Republicans to vote a certain way to actually support the motion to table MTG's resolution. What do you make of that from Mr. Trump?
Well, that's what killed this. There are legitimate complaints about how the House of Representatives, being under Republican control, has handled its authority and its responsibility. Now, I'm not saying that it's a cakewalk. I'm not saying in divided government you can get all you want, but I understand Marjorie Taylor Greene's frustrations about what has been accomplished. But once the former president had weighed in, this was over. And I agree with Lisa. Now it just looks like Republican infighting. So if the former president announces what he's planning to do, I think the more prudent thing would have been to just not file the motion to vacate.
John, it's interesting to take a look at the math here because 163 Democrats voted to save MAGA Mike Johnson's job. 11 Republicans voted with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I'm wondering, what is the significance of those numbers moving forward for the future of the speakership in terms of Mike Johnson retaining his job, do you suppose?
Well, the reason why the Democrats voted for him, or for him to keep his job, is that he basically gave them what they wanted in terms of not linking any border funding to the Ukraine funding bill, or not in any. They could have put H.R. 2, which would have put back exactly what we had in place before then, and that's what he should have done. That said, just like Horace said, it's not easy to do that, and so he's trying his best. But my view is that the best was not good enough. They should have had they should have made the Democrats vote against Ukraine funding to block any meaningful reforms on the border. That would have been very stark contrast. So bottom line is that that's what the Democrats were looking for, was to get somebody who's go along, get along. But back to what my colleagues just said earlier, is that this is a fight that I really doubt he keeps his job after November if Trump wins, because at that point is the time to settle these inter-party fights, not before then, and so he was right to tell her to call it off.
Have we seen the last of MTG's MTV? Apparently she can keep bringing this up if she wants to again, right?
Yeah, she's not going to do that anymore. I mean, you saw the way that if President Trump gave her one pass and that's it, he said that she's well-intentioned, but she's got to knock it off if she's going to have any support from his base. And look, she's great at what she does in terms of she has a loyal base, but her base is much more loyal to Trump than they are to her.
We shall see. We shall see. When we return, the Trump trials take center stage for good and bad. What they mean for the former president and the 2024 election when we return.